Rain hammers the cracked pavement outside a dying Korean diner on Chicago's South Side. While inside, 32-year-old Zuri Bennett scrubs dried ketchup from a counter that hasn't seen a proper cleaning in months. Her hands are scarred, knuckles raw from double shifts and zero mercy. 7-year-old Nia sleeps in their car outside because the babysitter quit 3 weeks ago, and rent is 2 months overdue. Across the city, Kang Min-jae, Korean Mafia boss, Billionaire, Ghost, watches surveillance footage of a woman he's been tracking for reasons even he doesn't fully understand. When their worlds collide in the marble hallway of his corporate tower, Zuri expects to lose everything. Instead, Min-jae offers her a job that could save her life. Or end it. If you want to see how far a single mother will go to survive in a world built on blood and power, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The neon sign outside Kim's 24-hour diner buzzed like a dying wasp. Half the letters were burned out, K_Ms2_EE_our_die_ear, which felt appropriate because the place had been dying for years, wheezing through each shift with ancient grease traps and a walk-in freezer that only worked when it felt like it. Zuri Bennett wiped the same section of counter for the 3rd time, her reflection warped in the stainless steel surface, distorted and tired. She looked 45 instead of 32. Poverty did that. Ground you down until your bones showed through. "Table 6 needs ketchup," Marcus called from the kitchen, his voice flat with the exhaustion of a man who'd worked the same grill station for 12 years and knew he'd die there. Zuri grabbed the plastic bottle, squirted a glob onto the plate of a trucker who didn't look up from his phone, and returned to her station. The clock above the coffee machine read 2:47 a.m. Another 3 hours until her shift ended. Then the 20-minute bus ride to her second job, janitorial work at the corporate towers downtown. Then home to wake Naya, get her to school, and collapse into 4 hours of sleep before the whole cycle started again. Her phone buzzed. Text from the landlord. Rent overdue. 3 days or eviction proceedings start. Zuri deleted it without responding. She'd already sold everything worth selling. Her grandmother's jewelry, the laptop she'd saved 2 years for, even the good winter coat. All of it gone, fed into the machine that demanded more and more just to keep a roof overhead and food in Nia's stomach. The diner door swung open. Cold November air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet concrete and car exhaust. A man in an expensive black overcoat stepped inside, water beading on the wool. He looked wrong here, too clean, too pressed, too deliberate. His shoes alone probably cost more than Zuri made in a month. "Kitchen's closing in 10, she said automatically. The man didn't respond. He moved to the corner booth, the one under the flickering fluorescent that made everyone look vaguely corpse-like, and sat with his back to the wall. Old habit, prison habit, or soldier habit, or something else entirely. Zuri brought him a menu and a glass of water. Up close, she could see he was Korean, maybe late 30s, with a face that belonged on corporate billboards. Sharp jaw, dark eyes, the kind of symmetrical features that made people trust you right before you destroyed them. But there was something off in the way he held himself. Too still, too controlled, like a blade sitting on a table, waiting to be picked up. "Coffee," he said. "Black." She poured it. He didn't touch it, just sat there, watching the street through the rain-streaked window like he was waiting for something specific to happen. Zuri had seen enough dangerous men to recognize the type. Her ex-husband Darnell had that same energy, violence wrapped in a clean shirt, always 3 seconds away from detonating. She left him alone. By 3:30 a.m., the diner had emptied, except for the man in the corner booth and a pair of drunk college kids arguing about a basketball game. Zuri started closing duties, wiping tables, refilling salt shakers, counting the register. $43 in tips, barely enough for groceries. The man finally stood, left a $100 bill on the table, and walked out without a word. Zuri stared at the money. Ben Franklin stared back, crisp and perfect and suspicious as hell. People didn't leave $100 tips on $2 coffees unless they wanted something, and whatever that something was, Zuri didn't have time for it. She pocketed the cash anyway. Survival didn't care about suspicion. Matrasik. The janitorial company sent her to Kang Tower 4 nights a week. 63 stories of glass and steel in the heart of Chicago's financial district, home to a dozen corporations Zuri couldn't afford to care about. She clocked in at 5 a.m., changed into the ugly blue uniform, and rode the service elevator to the executive floors with Maria, a Puerto Rican woman in her 50s who'd been cleaning rich people's messes for 30 years. "You look worse than usual," Maria said. "Thanks?" "I'm serious. You're gonna drop dead, mija. 2 jobs, a kid, no help. Something's gotta give." "Yeah, well, something already did, my bank account." Maria laughed, but it was the sad kind. The kind that knew the punchline was just more suffering. They split up at the 47th floor. Zuri took the east wing, executive suites, private offices, conference rooms that cost more per hour than she made in a week. She pushed her cart down the marble hallway, industrial vacuum humming behind her, and tried not to think about the fact that she was 32 years old and this was her life now. The chemical spill happened on the 51st floor. Zuri had been refilling the cleaning solution dispenser when the bottle slipped. Cheap plastic, worn threading, her fault for not checking it before she started. The entire gallon dumped across the pristine marble, a caustic blue puddle spreading fast, eating into the polish. Shit, 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 shit. She grabbed towels, tried to contain it, but the stuff was strong. Actual industrial cleaner, not the watered-down garbage they used in the public areas. Her eyes burned. The fumes were thick enough to choke on. She needed the spill kit from the supply closet, but that was 3 floors down, and by the time she got back the damage would be permanent, and she'd be fired. And there went the rent money. And stop. Zuri's head snapped up. A man stood 10 feet away, hands in the pockets of a tailored black suit. The same man from the diner. Same expensive coat. Same unsettling calm. He watched her the way scientists watched lab rats, curious but detached, like she was interesting but ultimately disposable. "Sir, I'm so sorry, I'll fix this, just—" "You work 2 jobs, he said. Not a question. A statement. Zuri froze. "What?" "Kim's 24-hour diner. Then here. You have a daughter, 7 years old, Nia Bennett. You're 3 months behind on rent. Your ex-husband has a warrant out for assault and fraud. You haven't bought yourself new clothes in 18 months. The hallway tilted. Zuri's pulse hammered in her ears. "How do you I've been watching you." 4 words, delivered with the emotional weight of a weather report. Zuri's hand moved instinctively to the phone in her pocket. Panic response, self-preservation. But the man didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even seem to register her fear as relevant. "My name is Kang Min-jun," he said. "I own this building, and 43 others across the city. I also own several businesses that don't appear on any legal documents. I'm offering you a position." "I don't." "Household manager, executive assistant. You'll live on my estate. Salary is $150,000 annually, plus housing, benefits, and a private education fund for your daughter. You start Monday." The words landed like punches. Zuri couldn't breathe. "Why?" "Because I need someone." "You don't even know me. I know you work 80-hour weeks to keep your daughter fed. I know you haven't missed a single parent-teacher conference in 3 years despite the schedule. I know you're smart enough to survive this city with no help and no safety net. That's more than most people I employ." Zuri's throat closed. She wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to grab her daughter and disappear into a state where men like this didn't exist. But Nia's face flashed in her mind, gap-toothed smile, pigtails, the way she'd started asking if they were going to be homeless soon, because kids at school said people who couldn't pay rent had to sleep in cars. "What's the catch?" Zuri whispered. Min-jun's expression didn't change. "I'm not a good man. The people around me are worse. If you accept this job, you'll be entering a world you can't leave easily, but your daughter will be safe, you'll be safe, and you'll never worry about rent again." "Are you threatening me?" "No, I'm offering you a choice." The chemical smell burned Zuri's nostrils. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang, distant and meaningless. She thought about Nia sleeping in the back seat of their car because the apartment was too cold and the heat had been shut off. Thought about the eviction notice. Thought about how many times she'd told her daughter to be strong, be brave, everything's going to be okay, while knowing deep down that she was lying. "I need to think about it," she said. "You have until Sunday." Min-jun turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing on the ruined marble. He didn't look back, didn't wait for an answer. just disappeared into the elevator like a ghost, leaving Zuri alone with a chemical spill and a decision that felt like staring down the barrel of a loaded gun. Oops. Nia was awake when Zuri got home. The apartment was freezing, heat still shut off, landlord still ignoring her calls. Nia sat at the kitchen table wrapped in 2 blankets, doing homework by the light of a desk lamp because the overhead fixture had burned out and Zuri couldn't afford new bulbs yet. "Mom, I'm cold." "I know, baby. I'll figure it out." "Miss Patterson said if I don't bring the field trip money by Friday, I can't go. $25 for a trip to the science museum." Zuri wanted to scream, wanted to punch the wall until her knuckles split, wanted to cry into the dirty dishes piled in the sink until someone, anyone, made the world make sense again. Instead, she smiled. "I'll get it. Don't worry." Nia looked at her with those big dark eyes, too smart for 7, too aware that her mother was drowning. "Are we going to be okay?" Zuri knelt beside her daughter, pulled her close, felt the sharp edges of Nia's shoulder blades through the blankets. "Yeah, baby, we're going to be okay." It was the worst lie she'd ever told. Sunday arrived too fast. Zuri spent the weekend researching Kang Min-jae. What she found was a maze of half-truths and corporate shell games. Officially, he was a billionaire investor with holdings in real estate, technology, and hospitality. Unofficially, according to a handful of true crime forums and one deeply paranoid blogger, he was the head of Chicago's Korean underground, a man who controlled everything from drug distribution to illegal gambling to God knew what else. No criminal record, no arrests, no evidence, just whispers. Zuri sat on the edge of her bed Saturday night, staring at her phone. She could walk away, pretend this never happened, keep working herself to death until something snapped and Nia ended up in foster care because her mother collapsed from exhaustion or stress or plain bad luck. Or she could say yes. She typed the number Min-jae had left on a business card. Simple text, "I accept." The response came 30 seconds later. "A car will pick you up Monday at 8 a.m. Bring your daughter. Pack light." Zuri didn't sleep that night. The estate was 40 minutes outside the city, hidden behind wrought iron gates and enough security cameras to film a documentary. The car, a black Mercedes with tinted windows, pulled up to a mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from a European postcard and dropped into the Illinois countryside. Stone facade, manicured lawns, fountains that probably cost more than Zuri's entire life. Nia pressed her face to the window. "Mom, is this real?" "I think so." The driver, a silent Korean man in a black suit, opened the door. Zuri and Nia stepped out into cold morning air that smelled like fresh-cut grass and money. The front door opened before they reached it. Min-jae stood on the threshold, dressed down in dark jeans and a sweater that probably cost $3,000. He looked different here, less ghost, more human, but the eyes were the same, calculating, unreadable. "Welcome," he said. Behind him, a small figure appeared. A boy, maybe 8 years old, with Min-jae's sharp features and a guarded expression that said he'd already learned not to trust strangers. "This is my son," Min-jae said. "Ji-hoon." The boy stared at Nia. Nia stared back. Some kind of silent negotiation happened between them, the way kids size each other up in 3 seconds flat. "You like Legos?" Nia asked. Ji-hoon nodded. "Cool. I brought my Millennium Falcon set." And just like that, the ice broke. Min-jae's expression shifted, barely, just a flicker at the corner of his mouth, but Zuri caught it. Surprise, maybe relief. He stepped aside, gestured them in. "I'll show you the house." The interior was museum perfect. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, art that looked old and priceless and untouchable. But it was also cold. Not temperature, emotionally. Like a showroom nobody actually lived in. No family photos, no clutter, no signs of life beyond the expensive furniture and the faint smell of industrial-grade cleaning products. "Your quarters are on the 2nd floor, Min-jae said, leading them up a staircase wide enough to drive a car through. 2 bedrooms, private bathroom, sitting area. Nia can attend the private school 10 minutes from here. Security will drive her." Security? Yes. He said it like it was obvious, like, of course, a 7-year-old needed armed escorts. Zuri's stomach twisted. They reached the 2nd floor. Min-jae opened a door to reveal a suite that made their old apartment look like a storage closet. King bed, flat-screen TV, windows overlooking the gardens. A second door led to a smaller bedroom, already furnished with a bed, desk, and bookshelf. "This is too much," Zuri said. "It's adequate." "I can't." "You can. You will. Your first priority is managing this household. Meals, scheduling, maintenance. I have staff for cleaning and security, but I need someone to coordinate. Second priority is Ji-hoon. He needs structure, routine, someone who doesn't treat him like a fragile object." Zuri looked at the boy hovering in the hallway, small hands shoved in his pockets. "What happened to his mother?" Min-jae's expression went blank. "She left." The way he said it, flat, final, told Zuri everything she needed to know. Don't ask, don't push. Some doors stayed closed. "I'll do my best," she said. "Good. Dinner's at 7. I expect everyone at the table." He walked away before she could respond, leaving Zuri and Nia standing in a bedroom worth more than everything they'd ever owned combined. Nia tugged her mother's hand. "Mom, is this our house now?" "I don't know, baby." "It's really big." "Yeah." "Are we safe here?" Zuri looked at her daughter, 7 years old, too smart, too scared, too aware that the world was a minefield. She thought about the eviction notice, the shut-off heat, the night she'd cried in the bathroom so Nia wouldn't hear. "Yeah," she said, "we're safe." Another lie. But maybe this time she could make it true. The first week passed in a blur of routines and unspoken rules. Zuri learned the house. 23 rooms, 8 bathrooms, a kitchen designed by someone who'd never actually cooked a meal in their life. All granite and steel and appliances that looked like they belonged on a spaceship. She learned the staff, quiet, efficient people who appeared when needed and vanished when they weren't. She learned Min-jae's schedule. Up at 5 a.m., gym, shower, breakfast alone, work from his home office until 8 p.m. Dinner, more work, sleep at midnight. No deviation, no spontaneity, no life. Ji-hoon was worse. The boy moved through the mansion like a ghost, silent and careful, like he was afraid of taking up too much space. He did his homework without being asked, ate his meals without complaint, went to bed exactly at 9 p.m., perfect behavior, completely hollow. It broke Zuri's heart. The first time she cooked a real meal, fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, cornbread, Ji-hoon stared at the plate like she'd set down a live grenade. "What's wrong?" she asked. "We don't eat this kind of food." "Why not?" "Father says meals should be efficient, nutritionally optimized." Zuri looked across the dining table at Min-jae, who was watching the exchange with that same unreadable expression. Nutritionally optimized? Protein, vegetables, complex carbohydrates, no excess sugar or fat. He's 8 years old. He needs discipline. He needs to be a kid. The air in the room shifted. Min-jae's eyes went cold, not angry, just flat, like he'd flipped a switch and turned off everything human. "This is my house, my rules." Zuri should have backed down, should have apologized, should have remembered she was an employee, not family, and this man could destroy her with a phone call. Instead, she leaned forward. "Then your rules are making your son miserable." Silence. Ji-hoon's eyes went wide. Nia stopped eating. Even the housekeeper standing by the kitchen door looked like she was about to witness a murder. Min-jae stood, slowly, deliberately. He walked around the table, stopped beside Zuri's chair, and looked down at her with an expression that could freeze oceans. "You've been here 6 days," he said quietly. "You think that gives you the right to tell me how to raise my child?" Zuri's pulse hammered, but she met his eyes. "I think someone needs to." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Min-jae stared at her for 5 seconds that felt like 5 years. Then he turned to Ji-hoon. "Eat," he said, and walked out. Ji-hoon picked up his fork with shaking hands. Zuri wanted to reach across the table, wanted to hug the boy, wanted to tell him it was okay to feel things, but she didn't, not yet. Pushing Min-jae once was risky. Pushing twice would get her thrown out. So she smiled at Nia instead. "How's the chicken, baby?" "Really good, Mom." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Across the table, Ji-hoon took a small bite of mac and cheese. His eyes widened. Then he took another bite, and another. And for the first time since Zuri had arrived, the boy looked like a child instead of a soldier. It wasn't much, but it was something. Min-jae didn't speak to her for 3 days. He moved through the house like she didn't exist, answering her questions with single-word responses and avoiding eye contact. Zuri told herself it didn't matter. This was a job, nothing more. She was here for Naya, for the paycheck, for the chance to stop drowning. But it bothered her anyway. On the 4th night, she found him in his study. The door was open, which felt like an invitation, or maybe a test. He sat behind a massive desk covered in paperwork, computer screens glowing in the dim light, glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, tension in his shoulders, the kind of bone-deep tiredness that came from years of carrying weight nobody else could see. "What do you want?" he asked without looking up. Zuri stepped inside. "To apologize. For what?" "Overstepping." "You're right. It's your house, your son. I had no business." "You were right." Zuri blinked. "What?" Min-jae finally looked at her. "I don't know how to be a father. I know how to build empires, destroy enemies, control outcomes, but I don't know how to make my son happy." The admission hit harder than Zuri expected. This man, this terrifying, untouchable man, looked completely lost. "He just needs you," she said quietly. "Not the rules, not the discipline. You. I'm not a good man, Zuri." It was the first time he'd used her first name. The intimacy of it felt like touching a live wire. "I don't believe that," she said. "You should." "Why?" "Because I've done things that would make you leave. Permanently." Zuri moved closer, stopped on the other side of the desk. "Try me." Min-jae's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through the armor. He stood, moved around the desk until they were 3 feet apart, close enough that Zuri could smell his cologne, see the faint scar along his jawline, feel the heat radiating off him. "I'm dangerous," he said softly. "I know. People who get close to me get hurt." "I know." "Then why are you still here?" "Because Nia and Ji-hoon are happy. Because for the first time in 5 years, I'm not terrified every second of every day. And because—" She trailed off. Min-jae waited. "Because I think you're lonely," Zuri finished, "and I know what that feels like." Something cracked in Min-jae's expression. He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her face, fingers brushing her cheek like he was afraid she'd break. His hand was warm, scarred, human. "You should be afraid of me," he whispered. "Probably. But you're not." "No." "Why?" Zuri didn't have an answer, or maybe she did, and it terrified her too much to say it out loud. So she just stood there, trapped in the gravity of this man's eyes, feeling like she'd just stepped off a cliff without checking if there was ground below. Min-jae's thumb traced her cheekbone. "Zuri!" A knock at the door shattered the moment. One of Min-jae's security team stood in the hallway, expression grim. "Sir, we have a problem." Min-jae's entire demeanor shifted, warmth replaced by ice in half a second. "What kind of problem?" "Darnell Bennett is outside the gates, drunk, demanding to see his daughter." Zuri's blood turned to slush. "No." But Min-jae was already moving, heading for the security room with purpose that made grown men step aside. Zuri followed, heart slamming against her ribs, terror clawing up her throat. The security room was all monitors and blinking lights. On the largest screen, Darnell Bennett leaned against the gate, bottle in hand, shouting incoherently. He looked worse than Zuri remembered, thinner, meaner, more desperate. The man who'd put her in the hospital twice. The man she'd spent 3 years running from. "He followed you," Min-jae said. "No accusation, just fact." "I didn't. I was careful, I swear." "I believe you. He's not that smart. Someone told him." "Who?" Min-jae didn't answer. He leaned over the console, pressed a button. "Send 2 men to the gate. Non-lethal. I'll handle this personally." "Sir, now." The security guard moved. Min-jae straightened, looked at Zuri with an expression that made her stomach drop. "Stay here. Keep the children inside, no matter what you hear." "Min-jae, do not leave this room." He walked out. Zuri stared at the monitors, watching as Min-jae appeared on screen, moving toward the gate with 2 guards flanking him. Darnell saw him coming and stumbled forward, shouting something Zuri couldn't hear through the speakers. Then Min-jae spoke. Whatever he said, it was quiet, calm, delivered with the tone of a man ordering coffee. Darnell's face went white. He dropped the bottle, took a step back, then another, then turned and ran, stumbling, terrified, disappearing into the darkness beyond the gate lights. Min-jae stood there for a long moment, perfectly still, watching the empty road. Then he turned and walked back toward the house, expression carved from stone. Zuri couldn't breathe, couldn't think, because she'd just watched the Mafia boss, not the father, not the man who'd touched her face like she was precious, but the predator underneath. And she realized with sickening clarity that she had no idea who Kang Min-jae really was, or what he was capable of doing to protect the people inside his walls. Min-jae returned to the house 20 minutes later with blood on his knuckles. Not his blood. Zuri saw it the moment he walked into the security room, dark stains across his right hand already drying brown at the edges. He moved to the sink without a word, ran cold water, scrubbed methodically like he was washing dishes instead of evidence. The guards who'd accompanied him stayed outside, silent sentinels who'd clearly seen worse. Is he dead? Zuri's voice came out strangled. Min-jae glanced at her reflection in the window above the sink. No. What did you do to him? What needed to be done? That's not an answer. He shut off the water, dried his hands on a towel that came away pink. When he turned to face her, his expression was the same terrifying calm she'd seen on the monitors. Empty, controlled, impossible to read. Your ex-husband came to my home, drunk, threatening to take your daughter, threatening to expose you to people who would hurt her to hurt me. So I explained very clearly what happens to men who threaten my household. By beating him? By showing him the alternative to leaving quietly. The room felt too small. Zuri's lungs couldn't pull enough air. What alternative? Min-jae stepped closer. Not threatening, just present, taking up space with the kind of certainty that came from never being told no. You don't want to know. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Because if I tell you, you'll leave, and I can't let that happen. The last sentence landed like a confession and a threat wrapped in the same breath. Zuri's pulse hammered in her throat. Can't or won't. Both. You don't own me. I know. Min-jae's eyes softened just slightly, enough that Zuri could see the exhaustion underneath. But Nia is safe here. Ji-hoon is happy. And you, for the first time since I've been watching you, you're not drowning. Don't throw that away because you're scared of me. I'm not scared of you. You should be. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He moved past her toward the door, paused in the frame. Darnell won't come back. I made sure of it. Get some sleep. Then he was gone, leaving Zuri alone with monitors showing empty grounds and the metallic smell of blood still hanging in the air. Sleep didn't come. Zuri lay in the enormous bed staring at the ceiling while her mind replayed the night in brutal detail. Darnell's face going white, Min-jae's calm voice, the blood on his knuckles, the way he'd said I can't let that happen like it was a simple fact instead of a declaration of ownership. She should pack, should grab Nia and run before this situation got worse, before Min-jae's world swallowed them whole. But run where? Back to the freezing apartment? Back to 80-hour weeks and eviction notices? Back to looking over her shoulder every second waiting for Darnell to reappear? At least here, Nia was safe, fed, warm, happy. At least here, Zuri could breathe, even if the air tasted like violence. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Zuri sat up, pulled on a robe, opened the door expecting one of the house staff. Ji-hoon stood in the hallway in Spider-Man pajamas, bare feet on cold marble, eyes red from crying. Hey, buddy. Zuri crouched to his level. What's wrong? I heard yelling, outside. Was someone trying to hurt us? The question gutted her. 8 years old and already conditioned to expect violence. No, sweetheart, everything's okay. Father gets scary sometimes, when people make him angry. Scary how? Ji-hoon looked down at his feet. Cold. Like he's not there anymore. Like he turned into someone else. Zuri thought about Min-jae's expression in the security room. Blank, efficient, terrifying. He's protecting you. That's what fathers do. My old mom used to say the same thing before she left. The words hung heavy. Zuri wanted to ask more about the woman who disappeared, about what Ji-hoon remembered, about whether Min-jae had always been this way or if something had broken him. But the boy looked so small, so fragile, that she just opened her arms instead. Ji-hoon hesitated, then stepped forward into the hug. He smelled like lavender soap and childhood innocence that didn't quite fit in this house of secrets and blood money. "You want to sleep in here tonight?" Zuri asked. "You and Nia can have a sleepover." Ji-hoon nodded against her shoulder. They set up blankets on the floor beside Nia's bed. The kids whispered and giggled like this was a normal house with normal problems. Zuri sat nearby, watching them, thinking about the impossibility of protecting children from the world while simultaneously living inside its worst corners. Eventually, they fell asleep. Zuri didn't. Morning arrived cold and gray. Zuri found Min-jae in the gym at 6 a.m., shirtless, slamming his fists into a heavy bag with mechanical precision. Each impact echoed through the space. Thud, thud, thud. Rhythmic violence set to the beat of whatever demons he was fighting. His back was a landscape of scars, some old, faded to white, others newer, raised and angry. Knife wounds, burn marks. The kind of damage that told stories Zuri wasn't sure she wanted to hear. "You're up early," Min-jae said without turning around. "Couldn't sleep." "Join the club." Thud, thud, thud. Zuri moved closer, stopped at the edge of the mat. "We need to talk." "About?" "Last night, Darnell. All of this." Min-jae finally stopped, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his spine. He grabbed a towel, turned to face her. Up close, the exhaustion was worse. Dark shadows under his eyes, tension in his jaw, the look of a man held together by pure willpower and nothing else. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "The truth, all of it. Who you really are, what you really do, why you're so interested in protecting people you barely know. You're not ready for that conversation. Try me." Min-jae studied her for a long moment, then gestured to a bench against the wall. "Sit." She did. He stayed standing, arms crossed, armor still partially up. "My father ran the Korean district for 30 years, gambling, protection, trafficking, anything that made money and couldn't be traced. He was brutal, effective, respected out of fear, not loyalty. When I was 12, a rival syndicate tried to take him out. They came to our house, killed 3 of his guards. Would have killed him too, except my mother stepped in front of the bullet." Zuri's breath caught. She died instantly. My father didn't even pause, just executed everyone in the room and went back to work. That night, he told me love was weakness. Caring about people made you vulnerable. The only way to survive was to be harder, colder, more ruthless than everyone else. Is that what you believe? It's what I practiced. For 20 years, I built an empire on that philosophy. No attachments, no emotion, just control and fear. It worked. I became untouchable. He paused, jaw working. Then Ji-hoon was born. What happened to his mother? She was a mistake, a one-night situation that resulted in pregnancy. I offered money for an abortion. She refused. Had the baby out of spite, I think. Wanted to trap me, leverage a child for access to my world. It didn't work. I took custody when Ji-hoon was 6 months old and sent her away. Sent her where? Min-jae's expression went flat. Somewhere she couldn't come back from. The implication settled like lead in Zuri's stomach. You killed her. I removed a threat to my son. That's not... It's exactly what it sounds like, and I'd do it again. He moved closer, voice dropping to something almost gentle. You want the truth? Here it is. I'm a murderer. I've killed 17 men personally and ordered the deaths of dozens more. I run operations that destroy lives. I've tortured people for information and felt nothing. The only reason I'm still alive is because I'm more vicious than everyone else in the city combined. Zuri should have been terrified, should have grabbed Nia and run screaming, but all she could see was the way Min-jae's hands shook slightly when he talked about his mother, the way his voice cracked on the word son, the human underneath the monster. Then why bring us here? She asked quietly. Because I saw you in that diner, exhausted, broken, still fighting, And you reminded me of her, my mother. The only person who ever loved me without wanting something in return. I thought, he stopped, swallowed hard. I thought maybe if I could save you, it would balance the scales somehow. That's not how it works. I know, but I'm trying anyway. The confession hung between them, raw and exposed. Zuri stood, closed the distance until they were inches apart. This close, she could see the faint stubble on his jaw, smell the salt of his sweat, feel the heat radiating off him. You're not your father, she said. I'm worse. No, you're trying. That's more than he ever did. Min-jae's eyes searched hers, looking for the lie, the angle, the moment she'd reveal herself as just another person trying to use him. When he didn't find it, something in him cracked open, just slightly, just enough to be dangerous. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Be close to someone. Care about something other than survival. It's been so long since Zuri kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't calculated, just pure impulse driven by the same reckless instinct that made people jump off cliffs, hoping the water below was deep enough to survive. Min-jae froze for half a second, then kissed her back with the kind of desperate hunger that came from years of starvation. His hands found her waist, pulled her closer, fingers digging into her skin through the thin fabric of her shirt. Zuri's pulse exploded. Every nerve ending caught fire. This was insane, reckless, the worst decision she'd ever made. She didn't care. Min-jae broke the kiss first, breathing hard, forehead pressed against hers. This is a mistake. Probably. People around me die. I'm still here. Zuri, shut up and kiss me again. He did. This time there was no hesitation. Just heat and need and the terrifying certainty that they'd both just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. When they finally pulled apart, Min-jae looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd stopped asking years ago. This changes everything, he said. I know. You're not just an employee anymore. Was I ever? Min-jae's expression shifted, something almost like hope breaking through the armor. No, you weren't. The next 3 weeks felt like living in a fever dream. During the day, Zuri managed the household while Min-jae conducted business from his office. Phone calls in Korean, meetings with men in expensive suits who never smiled, transactions that happened in code and left no paper trail. She learned to read the temperature of his world through small signals. When the house went quiet, danger was coming. When extra security appeared, someone had made a move against him. When Min-jae disappeared for days, people were dying. She didn't ask for details. He didn't offer them. But at night, when the kids were asleep and the guards changed shifts, Min-jae would find her in the kitchen or the library or the garden. They'd talk about nothing, movies, music, childhood memories that felt safe and far away. Sometimes they'd just sit in silence, existing in the same space without expectation or agenda. Those moments felt more intimate than the kissing. Ji-hoon started smiling more. Nia's nightmares about Darnell faded. The house that had felt like a mausoleum slowly warmed into something that almost resembled a home. Almost. The cracks started showing on a Tuesday. Zuri was in the kitchen preparing dinner when one of Min-jae's lieutenants, a cold-eyed man named Park, walked in with a folder. Where's the boss? Office. Why? Park's expression was unreadable. We have a situation. The Bennett problem isn't resolved. Zuri's blood went cold. What do you mean? Your ex-husband filed a police report, claims he was assaulted and threatened by Min-jae's people. He's talking to lawyers, threatening to go public with allegations about the organization. The knife in Zuri's hand clattered against the cutting board. He's bluffing. Darnell doesn't have money for lawyers. Someone's funding him. We're looking into who, but if this gets traction in the media, it creates problems. Big ones. Park's eyes shifted to her, calculating. Some people think you're the liability here, that bringing you into this house put a target on all of us. I didn't ask for any of this. Doesn't matter. You're here now, and your past is bleeding into our present. He left before Zuri could respond. She stood, frozen in the kitchen, surrounded by half-chopped vegetables and the sudden crushing weight of understanding. This was what Min-jae had warned her about, the danger of proximity, the price of being close to someone who lived in the shadows. and now her presence was threatening everything he'd built. Min-jae appeared in the doorway minutes later, face carved from stone. He'd clearly already heard. "Pack your things." Zuri's heart stopped. "What?" "You and Naya, pack. I'm moving you to a safe house until this situation is resolved." "You're sending us away?" "I'm protecting you." "By hiding us? By proving to your people that I'm a weakness?" "By keeping you alive." Min-jae moved closer, voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "Darnell is being used. Someone found out about you, about us, and they're weaponizing him against me. If you stay here, you become a target. I won't risk that." "So what, I just disappear? Let you handle this alone?" "Yes." "No. This isn't a negotiation." "You're right, it's not." Zuri threw the knife into the sink, rounded on him. "You told me you wanted something different, someone who saw you as more than a weapon. But the second things get complicated, you revert right back to the cold, controlling bastard who pushes everyone away." "I'm trying to save your life." "I didn't ask to be saved. I asked to be trusted." The words echoed through the kitchen. Min-jae stared at her, jaw working, every muscle in his body coiled tight. For a second, Zuri thought he might actually crack, might let the emotion break through the armor. Instead, he turned and walked away. Amchimapkek. Zuri didn't pack. She spent the night in her room, staring at the walls, trying to figure out how everything had fallen apart so fast. Nia was asleep in the next room, oblivious to the chaos brewing. Ji-hoon had asked 3 times during dinner why his father looked so angry. Zuri hadn't known what to tell him. At 2 a.m., her door opened. Min-jae stood in the frame, backlit by hallway light, looking wrecked. His shirt was untucked, tie gone, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. "I can't do this," he said. "Can't do what?" "Let you leave. I know I should. I know it's the smart move. But the thought of you not being here..." His voice cracked. "I can't breathe when I think about it." Zuri's chest tightened. "Then don't send me away. If I keep you here, you're in danger. I've been in danger my whole life. At least here, I'm fighting beside someone instead of alone." Min-jae crossed the room in 3 strides, cupped her face in his hands, kissed her like the world was ending. When he pulled back, his eyes were raw. "I don't know how to protect you and love you at the same time." "Then don't protect me. Just love me." "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is." "Zuri, I'm staying. You can either accept that or spend the rest of your life trying to control something you can't control. Your choice." Min-jae stared at her, conflict written across every line of his face. Then he kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like he was memorizing the taste of her. His hands moved to her waist, pulled her closer. Zuri's pulse hammered. This was reckless, dangerous, everything they shouldn't be doing. She didn't care. They stumbled toward the bed, a tangle of need and desperation, and the terrifying knowledge that they were both falling off the same cliff with no idea if there was ground below. Min-jae's hands found the hem of her shirt. Zuri's fingers worked at his buttons. Clothes hit the floor, skin against skin. Heat and breath and the kind of intimacy that came from 2 people who'd spent too long being alone. Afterward, they lay in the dark, tangled in sheets, Min-jae's arm wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. "This is going to get worse before it gets better," he said quietly. "I know. People are going to try to hurt you to hurt me. Let them try. I've never felt this terrified in my life." Zuri turned to face him, traced the scar along his jaw. "Good. That means you still have something worth protecting." Min-jae's eyes searched hers in the darkness. "I love you. I didn't want to. Didn't plan on it, but I do. And it scares the hell out of me." "I love you too," Zuri whispered. "Even though you're a murderous mafia boss with terrible communication skills and a savior complex." He laughed. Actually laughed. A real sound that cracked through the tension. "When you say it like that, it sounds bad." "It is bad. We're a disaster. The worst." And yet, Min-jae agreed, pulling her closer. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, 2 broken people building something fragile and impossible in the ruins of their separate wars. Morning came with gunfire. The sound shattered the pre-dawn quiet. sharp cracks echoing from somewhere outside the mansion. Zuri jolted awake, adrenaline spiking instantly. Min-jae was already moving, pulling on clothes with military efficiency, gun appearing in his hand from a drawer she hadn't known existed. "Stay here," he commanded. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me." "What's happening?" "Someone's testing the perimeter, probably just a message, but more gunfire, closer this time." Min-jae's expression went arctic. He kissed her once, hard and fast, then disappeared into the hallway, shouting orders in Korean. Zuri heard running footsteps, doors slamming, the metallic click of weapons being loaded. She ran to Nia's room, scooped her daughter out of bed. "We're playing a game, baby. A quiet game. We're going to hide, okay?" Nia's eyes were wide, but she nodded, too smart not to understand that something was very wrong. Ji-hoon appeared in the doorway, pale and shaking. "Father said to go to the safe room." "Where's that?" "This way." They followed the boy through corridors Zuri had never seen, down a hidden staircase behind a bookshelf in Min-jae's study, into a reinforced basement that looked like something out of a military bunker. Steel walls, security monitors, enough supplies to last weeks. This wasn't the first time Min-jae's home had come under attack. Zuri settled the kids on a couch, tried to keep her voice steady. "We're safe here. Your dad knows what he's doing." On the monitor, she watched chaos unfold. 3 black vans had crashed through the front gates. Armed men swarmed the grounds. Min-jae's security team engaged with brutal efficiency, gunfire, shouting, bodies dropping. And in the center of it all, Min-jae moved like a ghost, calm and lethal, coordinating defense with the precision of someone who'd done this 100 times before. The attack lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, 6 bodies lay scattered across the lawn. None of them belonged to Min-jae's people. Zuri's hands wouldn't stop shaking. An hour later, Min-jae appeared in the safe room, covered in someone else's blood. He looked at Zuri and the kids huddled together, and something in his expression shattered. "Is anyone hurt?" he asked. "No, we're okay." He nodded once, jaw tight. The attackers were Korean, rival syndicate. They wanted to send a message. What message? That I'm vulnerable now. That having a family makes me weak. His eyes met hers, hollow and exhausted. "They're not wrong. Don't say that. It's true. Before you, I had nothing to lose. Now," he gestured at the kids, at Zuri. "Now I have everything to lose, and my enemies know it." Zuri stood, moved to him, took his blood-stained hands in hers. "Then we fight. Together." "I can't ask you to..." "You're not asking. I'm telling you. We're in this now. All of us. So stop trying to push us away and start figuring out how we survive this as a family." Min-jae stared at her like she'd just spoken a language he'd forgotten existed. Behind him, Ji-hoon watched his father with something close to hope in his eyes. Nia clung to Zuri's leg, small and scared, but trusting her mother to keep them safe. And in that underground bunker, surrounded by weapons and monitors and the evidence of violence, something shifted. Min-jae pulled Zuri into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe. "Okay," he whispered against her hair. "Okay. We fight." But as they stood there, tangled together in the wreckage of their separate lives, trying to become one, neither of them saw the security feed in the corner showing a man in the trees beyond the property line, watching the house through binoculars. Watching them. Darnell Bennett hadn't left Chicago. He'd just been waiting for the right moment to make his move. And he'd found partners far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. People who wanted Kang Min-jae destroyed not just for business, but for revenge. The war had only just begun. The bodies were gone by sunrise. Min-jae's cleanup crew worked with the efficiency of people who'd done this before. Pressure washers, bleach, fresh gravel where blood had soaked into the driveway. By 7 a.m., the mansion looked untouched. Perfect. Like 6 men hadn't died violently on the lawn just hours earlier, but Zuri could still smell the gunpowder. She stood at the kitchen window watching the crew work while coffee went cold in her hands. Nia and Ji-hoon were still asleep in the safe room, curled together under blankets, innocence temporarily preserved. Min-jae was somewhere in the house on the phone, voice low and deadly, orchestrating consequences for whoever had sent the attackers. Maria, the housekeeper, appeared beside her with fresh coffee. "You get used to it." The violence? The aftermath. The pretending it never happened. Maria's eyes were sad and knowing. I've worked for Mr. Kang for 8 years. This is the 4th time someone tried to breach the property. It never gets easier, but you learn to keep moving. How do you live like this? You love someone enough. You learn to live with anything. The words landed heavy. Zuri thought about Min-jae's hands on her skin last night, the way he'd whispered, "I love you," like a confession and a curse. She thought about Nia finally sleeping through the night without nightmares, about Ji-hoon laughing at dinner for the first time in years, about how much she had to lose now. The attackers, Zuri said quietly. Min-jae said they were rivals, but they knew exactly when to hit, knew the security patterns. Someone told them. Maria's expression went carefully blank. That's not my business to discuss. But you know something. I know Mr. Kang has enemies everywhere, even inside his own organization. People who think he's gone soft since... She stopped, glanced at Zuri. Since you arrived. The accusation was gentle but clear. Zuri was the weakness, the crack in the armor, the reason everything was falling apart. Before she could respond, Min-jae appeared in the doorway. His face was gray with exhaustion, shirt still stained, eyes hollow. We need to talk. Privately. They went to his study. Min-jae closed the door, locked it, then just stood there for a long moment like he was gathering strength to deliver bad news. What happened? Zuri asked. The attack wasn't random. It was coordinated with Darnell's police report. Someone's building a case against me, using your ex-husband as the front man while hitting us with violence to create chaos. Who? I don't know yet, but they're smart, professional. They know how my organization works. He moved to the window, stared out at the grounds where men had died. There's a mole. Someone close enough to know our routines, our security protocols, our vulnerabilities. Zuri's stomach dropped. You think someone in your own crew is selling you out? I know they are. I just don't know who yet. What are you going to do? Min-jae's reflection in the window went cold. What I always do. Find them. Make an example. Send a message that betrayal has consequences. The casual brutality of the statement made Zuri's skin crawl. This was the part of Min-jae she kept trying to forget. The killer, the crime lord, the man who solved problems with violence because violence was the only language his world understood. There's something else, Min-jae said, voice careful. Darnell's lawyer contacted the FBI. They're opening an investigation into my business operations. If they dig deep enough, they'll find things that can't be explained, things that will put me in prison for the rest of my life. Can't you pay them off? Make it go away? Not anymore. Whoever's orchestrating this made sure to involve federal agents who can't be bought. They want me exposed, destroyed. Everything I've built turned to ash. He finally turned to face her. I need you and the kids to leave the country. Tonight. I have a place in South Korea, secure, off the grid. You'll be safe there while I handle this. No. Zuri, I said no. We're not running. We're not hiding. We're staying right here and fighting whoever's trying to destroy us. This isn't your fight. Like hell it isn't. Someone's using my ex-husband to attack you. That makes it my fight. She moved closer, grabbed his hands. You told me we do this as a family, so stop trying to send us away every time things get hard. Min-jae's jaw worked. For a second, she thought he'd argue. Instead, he pulled her into his arms, held her so tight it hurt. If something happens to you because of me, it won't. You don't know that. Neither do you, so stop acting like you can control everything and just... Her voice broke. Just let me stay. Please. Min-jae's arms tightened. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Okay. Okay, you stay. But if things go bad, if it looks like we're losing, you take Nia and Ji-hoon and you run. You don't look back. You don't wait for me. You just run. Promise me. Min-jae. Promise me, Zuri. She pulled back, looked into his exhausted, terrified eyes. I promise. It was a lie, but he needed to hear it, so she gave it to him anyway. The next 48 hours passed in tense quiet. Min-jae locked down the estate, triple security, armed patrols, no one in or out without clearance. He spent hours in his office interrogating his own people, trying to root out the traitor. Zuri kept the kids occupied with movies and board games, maintaining the illusion of normalcy while the world outside prepared for war. Then Park disappeared. Min-jae's most trusted lieutenant, the man who'd been with him for 15 years, who'd helped build the empire from nothing, vanished without a trace. No phone calls, no texts, just gone. Min-jae's rage was biblical. Zuri watched from his doorway as he tore his office apart, throwing furniture, smashing monitors, roaring in Korean while his remaining men stood frozen, terrified to intervene. When the storm finally passed, Min-jae stood in the wreckage breathing hard, knuckles bleeding, eyes wild. He took everything, Min-jae said hoarsely. Financial records, client lists, security protocols, everything I need to prove the FBI's case is fabricated. Park had access to all of it, and his voice cracked. 15 years. I trusted him with my life, with my son's life, and he sold me out. Zuri picked her way through broken glass, stood beside him. Why would he do that? Money, power, revenge. Does it matter? He's gone, and he took my entire defense with him. There has to be a way to... There isn't. Without those records, I can't prove the money's legitimate. Can't explain the offshore accounts. Can't distance myself from the illegal operations. The FBI will dismantle everything, and I'll die in a cell watching my son grow up through prison glass. The despair in his voice shattered something in Zuri's chest. She'd never heard Min-jae sound defeated before. Tired, yes. Angry, absolutely. But never broken. Then we find Park, she said firmly. We get the records back. He's already out of the country by now, probably in Korea or China or somewhere I can't reach him without starting an international incident. So we call the bluff. We go to the FBI ourselves. Tell them you're cooperating. They'll arrest me the second I walk through the door. Then The office phone rang. Min-jae stared at it like it was a bomb. 3 rings, 4. Finally, he picked up. What? Even from across the room, Zuri could hear the voice on the other end. Male, Korean, speaking rapidly. Min-jae's expression went from exhausted to shocked to absolutely murderous in the span of 30 seconds. Where? He said flatly. More talking. I'll be there in an hour, alone. If this is a trap... He hung up before finishing the threat. What happened? Zuri asked. Park wants to meet, says he has a deal. It's obviously a trap. I know, but he's offering to return the files if I agree to his terms. I have to try. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Min-jae, no, this is non-negotiable. You stay here with the kids where you're protected. I go alone. If I'm not back in 3 hours, you take them and run exactly like you promised. I can't just sit here while you... He kissed her, hard and desperate and final. When he pulled back, his eyes were glassy with unshed tears. I love you. No matter what happens tonight, I need you to know that. You changed everything, made me believe I could be more than what my father made me. Even if this is the end, you gave me something beautiful. Thank you. Don't talk like that. You're coming back. Maybe. He touched her face gently. But if I don't, if this goes wrong, tell Ji-hoon I'm sorry. For all of it. For being a terrible father. For bringing him into this world. For not knowing how to love him the way he deserved. Zuri's throat closed. Tell him yourself when you get home. Min-jae smiled sadly. Yeah, when I get home. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night with 2 bodyguards, leaving Zuri standing in the ruins of his office with the terrible certainty that she'd just watched him leave for the last time. The call came 90 minutes later. Unknown number. Zuri answered on the second ring. Hello? Ms. Bennett? Male voice, American, official. This is Special Agent Morrison with the FBI. I'm calling to inform you that Kang Min-jae was taken into federal custody approximately 20 minutes ago. He's being held on charges of racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. The world tilted. What? No, he was meeting someone. He was meeting with federal agents. The individual he believed to be Park was actually an undercover operative. Mr. Kang is in custody. We'll need you to come in for questioning regarding your knowledge of his criminal activities. I don't know anything about... Ma'am, we have evidence that you've been living in his home for several weeks. that you've been involved in a romantic relationship with him. We have surveillance footage of last week's attack on the property. We know you're aware of Mr. Kang's operations. You can cooperate voluntarily, or we can obtain a warrant. Your choice. Zuri's hands shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. I need time to arrange childcare. I have 2 kids here. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you don't show up at our field office, we'll assume you're fleeing and issue a warrant for your arrest as well. The line went dead. Zuri stood frozen in the hallway, brain short-circuiting, trying to process what had just happened. Min-jun was arrested. Park was FBI. The whole thing had been a setup from the beginning, and she was next. A hand touched her shoulder. Zuri spun, heart hammering. Maria stood there, expression grave. You need to leave. Now. Tonight. Before they come for you. I can't just... The kids... I'll take care of the children. Get them somewhere safe while you figure this out. But you cannot be here when the FBI shows up with a warrant. They will take you. They will use you to destroy whatever's left of Mr. Kang's life. You understand? Zuri's brain refused to work. This was insane. She hadn't done anything wrong, hadn't participated in any crimes. She was just in love with the wrong man. Where do I even go? She whispered. Korea. Mr. Kang has property there, contacts who can help. I'll give you the information, but you have to leave within the hour. Maria's eyes were fierce. He loves you. He would want you safe, not rotting in prison beside him. I can't leave him. You don't have a choice. The only question is whether you fight from outside or let them bury you both. The words landed like a punch. Zuri thought about Nia's face, so happy and safe for the first time in years. Thought about Ji-hoon finally learning what family felt like. Thought about Min-jun in a cell somewhere, probably convinced he'd failed everyone he loved. She made her decision. Give me the information. I'll go. But I'm not running forever. I'm going to find a way to fix this. Maria nodded. Then let's move. You don't have much time. 30 minutes later, Zuri stood in the bedroom she'd shared with Min-jun for one perfect night, throwing clothes into a bag with shaking hands. Passport, cash. The emergency phone Maria had given her with Korean contacts programmed in, documents with property addresses and bank account numbers that would probably make her an accessory after the fact just for possessing them. She went to check on the kids one last time. They were asleep in the safe room, curled together like they'd been siblings forever. Nia's arm thrown over Ji-hoon's shoulder, Ji-hoon's face finally peaceful instead of guarded. Zuri's heart shattered. She couldn't take them with her, couldn't drag Nia into international flight from the FBI, couldn't steal Min-jun's son and disappear across the ocean. They were safer here with Maria, in the legal system, where at least there were rules and paperwork and oversight. But leaving them felt like cutting off her own limbs. She kissed Nia's forehead, whispered, I love you, baby. Mama's going to fix this. I promise. Then she did the same to Ji-hoon, this boy who'd somehow become hers in the space of a few weeks. She was halfway to the door when Ji-hoon's voice stopped her. You're leaving. Zuri turned. The boy was sitting up, eyes too old, too knowing. I have to, just for a little while. You're not coming back, just like my mother didn't come back. The accusation gutted her. Ji-hoon, I swear to you, everyone leaves. It's what they do. Father should never have trusted you. His voice was flat, emotionless, every wall back up. Go. I don't care anymore. Ji-hoon, go. The word was a scream. Nia jerked awake, confused and frightened. Zuri wanted to stay, wanted to explain, wanted to gather both kids in her arms and make them understand that she wasn't abandoning them. But Maria appeared in the doorway, expression urgent. Now, you have to go now. So Zuri ran. Through the mansion, out to a waiting car. Into the night, leaving behind everything she'd started to believe in. Safety, family, love. The possibility that broken people could build something whole. The driver was one of Min-jun's men, silent and efficient. He drove fast, taking back roads, avoiding cameras. They were 20 miles from the estate when Zuri's phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but answered anyway. Hello? Miss Bennett, this is Park. Zuri's blood turned to ice. You son of a... I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I need you to listen very carefully because your life and Mr. Kang's life depend on what you do in the next 60 seconds. Why should I believe anything you say? You betrayed him. You're working with the FBI. I'm not FBI. I'm worse. Park's voice was calm, almost gentle. I work for the people who want Min-jae destroyed completely. The federal case is real, but I'm the one who built it. Spent 15 years earning his trust, gathering evidence, positioning him for the fall. Why? Because 18 years ago, Min-jae's father killed my brother, executed him in an alley over a gambling debt. Min-jae was there. He watched, did nothing. So I dedicated my life to destroying everything his family built. Park paused. But then you showed up, and I realized something. Breaking Min-jae isn't enough anymore. I want him to suffer the way my family suffered. I want him to lose the thing he loves most. Zuri's pulse hammered. If you touch my daughter, what does he... Girl, I don't need to. You're going to do exactly what I tell you, or I'll make sure the FBI charges Nia as an accessory. She's 7 years old enough to be held in juvenile detention, old enough to be traumatized by the system, old enough to learn that her mother chose a criminal over her own child. You're insane. I'm thorough. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn yourself in to the FBI tomorrow morning. You're going to testify against Min-jae, confirm every detail of his criminal operations, provide evidence of his violence, his corruption, everything. If you do this, I'll make sure Naya is placed with family services instead of detention. If you refuse, you'll destroy her. I'll destroy everyone. You, her, Ji-hoon, even Min-jae's legitimate businesses. I'll burn it all down and make sure Min-jae spends the rest of his life knowing he killed everyone he loved by being exactly what his father raised him to be. Zuri couldn't breathe. The car felt too small, the air too thick. How do I know you're not bluffing? You don't. But ask yourself this. Are you willing to gamble your daughter's life on the possibility that I'm not as ruthless as the man you fell in love with? The line went dead. Zuri sat in the back seat, phone clutched in shaking hands, staring at nothing while her brain tried to process the impossible choice Park had just handed her. Betray Min-jae and save Nia, or stay silent and watch her daughter disappear into the system. There was no third option, no escape, no clever solution. Just two people she loved and only enough mercy to save one. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Ma'am, where do you want to go? Zuri closed her eyes. Thought about Min-jae's face when he told her he loved her. About Nia's laugh. About Ji-hoon's accusation. Everyone leaves. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 weeks ago, scrubbing counters in a dying diner, too exhausted to dream. She thought about the woman she'd become. Someone who'd actually believed love could be stronger than violence. She'd been wrong. Love wasn't stronger. It was just another weapon people used to destroy each other. Take me to the FBI field office, she said, voice hollow. I'm turning myself in. The FBI field office smelled like bad coffee and fluorescent desperation. Zuri sat in a gray interrogation room at 4 a.m., handcuffed to a metal table, staring at her reflection in the two-way mirror while two agents flipped through files thick enough to crush a small animal. Special Agent Morrison, white, 50s, face like a pit bull, sat across from her with the calm of a man who'd broken hundreds of people exactly like this. His partner, Agent Chen, stood by the door, silent and watchful. Let's start simple, Morrison said. How long have you known about Kang Min-jae's criminal operations? Zuri's throat was sandpaper. I want a lawyer. You're not under arrest, yet. Right now, you're a witness, but that can change very quickly depending on how cooperative you are. He opened a folder, slid photos across the table. These were taken outside Mr. Kang's estate over the past 6 weeks. You, your daughter, his son. Very cozy, very domestic. The photos showed Zuri and Min-jae in the garden, on the porch, through windows. Intimate moments stolen and cataloged. Her stomach turned. We know you're in a relationship with him, Morrison continued. We know you live in his home. We know you witnessed the attack on the property last week where 6 men were killed. What we don't know is whether you're a victim or an accomplice. I'm not an accomplice. I didn't know about any of it when I took the job. But you know now. Zuri's hands shook. Park's words echoed in her skull. Testify against Min-jae or watch your daughter burn. She thought about Nia asleep in the safe room, about Ji-hoon's accusation, about Min-jae somewhere in this building, probably in a cell, probably thinking she'd already betrayed him. Maybe she had. I know he runs businesses, she said carefully. Real estate, hotels, technology firms. He told me some of his operations weren't entirely legal, but he never gave me details. Did he ever ask you to participate in illegal activities? No. Did you ever witness him committing crimes? The image of Min-jae covered in blood flashed through her mind. The bodies on the lawn, the cold precision with which he'd threatened Darnell. I saw him defend his home. That's not a crime. 6 people died, Ms. Bennett. 6 people attacked us. What was he supposed to do? Serve them tea? Morrison's expression didn't change. Did Mr. Kang ever discuss his criminal enterprises with you? Names of associates, locations of operations, financial arrangements? No. He kept me separate from that part of his life. Convenient. It's the truth. Then you won't mind if we search your phone, email, bank records. See exactly how separate you really were. Zuri's pulse spiked. The emergency phone Maria had given her was in her bag, full of Korean contacts and offshore account numbers that would bury her. I want a lawyer. So you said. But here's the thing. Lawyers cost money. And right now, all of Mr. Kang's assets are frozen. So unless you have $50,000 lying around for a retainer, you're going to be sitting in here for a very long time without representation. Morrison leaned forward. Or you can cooperate. Tell us what you know. Help us build a case against the people who dragged you into this mess. We're not interested in you, Ms. Bennett. We want the organization, the suppliers, the distribution networks, the money laundering operations. You give us that, we can make this go away. You and your daughter walk out of here and start over somewhere safe. It was the exact deal Park had promised. Betray Min-jae, save Naya. Simple transaction. Except nothing about this was simple. I need to see my daughter, Zuri said. Before I agree to anything, I need to know she's safe. Morrison exchanged a glance with Chen. Your daughter is currently in the custody of Child Protective Services. Standard procedure when a parent is being questioned in a federal investigation. She's unharmed. She'll stay that way as long as you cooperate. The threat was velvet-wrapped, but clear. Talk, or Nia disappears into the system. Zuri's vision blurred. She thought about Min-jae's face when he'd left the estate, that sad, final smile. The way he'd said thank you like he already knew how this would end. He'd spent his whole life expecting betrayal. From his father, from his enemies, from everyone. Now it was coming from her. Okay, she whispered. I'll tell you what I know, but I want it in writing that my daughter gets placed with my sister in Atlanta. Not foster care. Family. Done. Start talking. Zuri closed her eyes, took a breath, prepared to destroy the only man who'd ever made her feel safe. Then the door exploded inward. Not metaphorically. Actually exploded, wood splintering, hinges shrieking, the entire frame buckling as 3 men in black tactical gear stormed into the room with weapons drawn. Morrison went for his gun, but one of the men was faster, slamming him face first into the table. Chen hit the panic button, but another intruder ripped it from the wall, crushed it under his boot. The third man moved to Zuri, produced a key, unlocked her cuffs with professional efficiency. He was Korean, mid-30s, face hidden behind a black mask. Come with us, he said in accented English. Now. What? Who are you? Mr. Kang sent us. You have 10 seconds before this building goes into lockdown. Move. Zuri's brain short-circuited. This was insane. This was a jailbreak. This would make her a fugitive for real, not just a witness. But the man was already pulling her toward the door, and Morrison was shouting into his radio. An alarm started screaming through the building like the world was ending. She ran. Through corridors full of agents scrambling for weapons. Down stairwells where more masked men held perimeters with military precision. Out into a parking garage where a black van waited with the engine running. Someone shoved her inside. The door slammed. Tires screamed against concrete. They were moving before Zuri could even process what had just happened. The driver weaved through downtown Chicago like he'd memorized every traffic pattern, every camera blind spot, every escape route. Behind them, sirens wailed. The man who'd freed her pulled off his mask, revealing a face Zuri had seen before, one of Min-jae's personal security team. Where are we going? She gasped. Somewhere safe. Mr. Kang's orders. Min-jae's in custody. How did he... Ooh, he made arrangements before the arrest. Contingency plans in case things went wrong. You're one of those plans. The man handed her a phone. He wants to speak with you. Zuri took the phone with shaking hands. Min-jae? Zuri. His voice was rough, exhausted, beautiful. Are you hurt? No, I'm... What just happened? Did you just break me out of an FBI interrogation? Technically, my people did. I'm still very much in custody, but I couldn't let them use you as leverage against me. I couldn't let them threaten Nia. Tears burned Zuri's eyes. They said they'd take her, put her in foster care. I was going to... I know. It's what anyone would have done, but you didn't. You held on long enough for my team to extract you. That's what matters. Min-jae, this is insane. I'm a fugitive now. The FBI will hunt me forever. Only if I lose. If I win, none of this matters. Win how? You're in prison. Park has all your records. The case against you is built on lies and manipulation. Park thinks he's won because he spent 15 years earning my trust. But he made a mistake. He underestimated how deep my contingencies run. I've been preparing for betrayal my entire life, Zuri. From everyone. Even from the people I love most. His voice softened. I just never thought it would hurt this much when it actually happened. I didn't betray you. I know, but you were going to, and I don't blame you. Protecting your daughter is the only sane choice. It's what I would have done. Then why save me? Because I love you, and because I need you to do something for me, something dangerous, something that might get you killed. But if you succeed, we can end this. All of it. Park, the FBI, the rival syndicates, everyone who's been hunting us. Zuri's pulse hammered. What do you need? There's a safety deposit box at First National Bank, Box 347. Inside are documents that prove Park has been working for the Zhang Syndicate, the Chinese organization that's been trying to take over Chicago's underground for the past decade. The FBI case against me isn't about justice. It's about clearing the board so Zhang can move in unopposed. Park's been their asset the whole time. How do you know this? Because I've known Park was dirty for 6 months. I let him keep feeding me information, kept him close, waiting to see who he was really working for. When he disappeared with my files, he thought he'd won. But those files are copies. Convincing copies, but useless in court. The real evidence is in that safety deposit box. Why didn't you just expose him months ago? Because I needed proof, and I needed to know how far the corruption went. Turns out, it goes all the way to the federal prosecutor's office. Park has people inside the FBI, inside the courts. If I'd moved too early, they would have buried me anyway. Min-jae's voice hardened. But now they've overplayed their hand. They arrested me publicly. Created a media spectacle. If we can prove this is a conspiracy, that the FBI is being manipulated by a foreign criminal organization, the entire case collapses. And I'm supposed to just walk into a bank and retrieve this evidence? You're the only one they won't be watching. Park thinks you're in FBI custody. The Zhang Syndicate thinks you're cooperating. No one expects you to be free, which gives you a window. Maybe 12 hours before they realize what happened and adjust. 12 hours to break into a safety deposit box and expose a conspiracy involving the FBI and the Chinese Mafia. Sure, sounds reasonable. Min-jae actually laughed, a broken, desperate sound. I'm sorry for all of this, for dragging you into my world, for making you a target. If I could go back and never walk into that diner, don't. Don't you dare say you regret meeting me. I don't regret meeting you. I regret that loving me might kill you. It won't. We're going to fix this. We're going to get you out. And then, her voice broke. And then we're going to go home and make pizza with the kids and pretend this nightmare never happened. Silence on the other end. When Min-jae spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Going to hold you to that. Good. Zuri, if this goes wrong, if Park realizes what you're doing, you run. You don't try to fight. You don't try to save me. You just take Nia and disappear. Promise me. I'm not promising you anything except that I'll see you again. Zuri, I love you. We're going to win this. Stop acting like we're already dead. Another long silence. Then, The key to the box is in a locker at Union Station, number 212. Combination is Nia's birthday. My team will get you there safely. After that, you're on your own. The bank opens at 9 a.m. You have a 6-hour window before Park realizes you're not in custody anymore. Make it count. I will. And Zuri, thank you for not giving up on me, even when you should have. The line went dead. Union Station at 6 a.m. was a ghost town. Zuri moved through the terminal wrapped in a coat 2 sizes too big, baseball cap pulled low, moving like she belonged there. Min-jae's security team had dropped her 3 blocks away with cash, a fake ID, and instructions to avoid cameras. She found locker 212, punched in the combination 0718, Nia's birthday, and retrieved a small key taped inside. The key felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She pocketed it, left through the north exit, caught a cab to a diner 6 blocks from First National Bank. Ordered coffee and eggs she couldn't taste. Watched the clock tick toward 9 a.m. while her brain spun worst-case scenarios. Park finding out she was free. The FBI tracking her. Zhang's people recognizing her. Min-jae dying in a cell while she failed to save him. At 8:55 a.m., her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. I know where you are. I know what you're trying to do. If you enter that bank, I will kill your daughter. This is not a bluff. Park Zuri's blood turned to ice. She stared at the message, hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. How did he know? How had he figured it out so fast? Another text. You have 2 choices. Walk away now and Nia lives. Or retrieve those documents and watch her die. Your move. The diner suddenly felt too small, too exposed. Zuri looked around, other customers, waitstaff, a construction worker reading the paper. Anyone could be Park's eyes. Anyone could be reporting her location right now. She thought about Nia, about Ji-hoon, about Min-jae in a cell, betting everything on her success. She thought about the woman she'd been before all this, the one who played it safe, who never took risks, who survived by staying small and invisible. That woman would walk away. That woman would sacrifice Min-jae to save her daughter without hesitation. But Zuri wasn't that woman anymore. She paid cash, left the diner, walked straight toward First National Bank with her spine straight and her chin up. If Park wanted to kill her, he'd have to do it in broad daylight in front of cameras and witnesses. If he wanted to hurt Nia, he'd have to go through Maria and Min-jae's entire remaining security team. She was done running. The bank was glass and marble and corporate sterility. Zuri approached the front desk, showed her fake ID, Michaela Johnson, real estate agent, and requested access to box 347. The clerk checked the records, verified the key, led her to a private room in the vault. The safety deposit box was smaller than expected. Inside, a USB drive, a stack of photographs, and a handwritten note in Min-jae's precise script. If you're reading this, I'm either dead or in custody. The drive contains 15 years of financial records linking Park to the Zhang syndicate, including wire transfers, meeting transcripts, and proof that 3 FBI agents are on Zhang's payroll. The photos show Park meeting with known Zhang operatives. This is enough to dismantle the case against me and trigger an investigation into federal corruption. Get this to the media. All of it. Don't go through the FBI. They're compromised. Go directly to the press. Make it public before anyone can bury it. I'm sorry you had to be the one to do this. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from my world. I love you. M. Zuri pocketed the drive and photos, left the bank, and immediately felt eyes on her. Across the street, a black sedan with tinted windows. 2 men in suits loitering near a coffee shop. A woman in designer clothes watching her a little too carefully. Park's people. Or Zhang's. Or both. She had maybe 60 seconds before they moved. Zuri ran. Down the street into an alley, vaulting a chain-link fence with adrenaline overriding common sense. Behind her, shouts in Mandarin. Footsteps pounding concrete. She burst onto the next street, flagged a taxi, threw cash at the driver. Go, now, don't stop. The cab lurched into traffic. In the rearview mirror, Zuri watched the sedan trying to follow, but Chicago morning traffic was a beautiful nightmare of gridlock and road rage. They lost visual within 2 blocks. Zuri pulled out her phone, pulled up the contact Maria had programmed. Jessica Reyes, investigative journalist with the Tribune, known for breaking corruption stories. She hit dial. Reyes, my name is Zuri Bennett. I have evidence of FBI corruption and foreign criminal infiltration of federal law enforcement. I need to meet. Now. Public place. Bring cameras. Silence. Then, who is this really? Someone who's about to blow up the biggest story of your career. Millennium Park. The Bean. 30 minutes. Come alone or don't come at all. She hung up before Reyes could ask questions. Millennium Park was crawling with tourists. Zuri positioned herself near the Cloud Gate sculpture, the Bean, surrounded by enough people that Park's crew couldn't make a move without witnesses. She spotted Reyes approaching from the north, phone in hand, camera operator trailing behind. The journalist was 40s, Latina, sharp eyes that had probably seen every con and lie the city had to offer. She stopped 3 feet from Zuri, expression skeptical. You've got 2 minutes to convince me this isn't a waste of time. Zuri handed her the USB drive. That contains financial records linking a 15-year FBI confidential informant to the Zhang syndicate. The informant's name is Park. He's been feeding false evidence to federal agents to build a case against Kang Min-jae. Not because Min-jae is guilty, but because Zhang wants control of Chicago's underground and Min-jae is in the way. Reyes turned the drive over in her hands. This is a serious allegation. Look at the photos. Park meeting with known Zhang operatives, wire transfers from offshore accounts. Emails. Everything you need to prove the FBI has been played. Why come to me? Why not go through official channels? Because 3 FBI agents are on Zhang's payroll. Official channels are compromised. If I give this to them, it disappears and I end up dead. You publish this, it's public record. They can't bury it. Reyes studied Zuri's face, looking for the lie. Who are you to Kang Min-jae? Someone who loves him. Someone who's tired of watching corruption destroy innocent people. Min-jae isn't innocent. No, but he's not the villain in this story either. Park is. Zhang is. And if you don't publish this, they win. They take over the city. More people die. And the FBI gets away with being complicit in organized crime. The journalist's expression shifted. The look of someone who'd just smelled blood in the water. If this checks out, if it's real, this is front-page material. This is career-defining. Then check it out. Fast. I don't have much time before a gunshot cracked through the air. Tourists screamed. People scattered. Zuri's vision tunneled to a single point. A man 50 feet away with a pistol raised, sighting down the barrel straight at her head. Park's backup plan. If she wouldn't walk away willingly, she'd die publicly. Zuri dove sideways as the second shot rang out, felt the bullet tear through the air inches from her skull. Reyes hit the ground, camera operator scrambling for cover. Panic turned the park into a stampede. More gunshots. Security guards shouting. Police sirens wailing in the distance. Zuri crawled behind the Bean's curved metal surface, breath coming in ragged gasps, every nerve screaming. This was it. This was how it ended. Shot down in a public park while trying to save a man who'd warned her from the beginning that loving him was dangerous. Then a body slammed into the ground beside her. Not an enemy. One of Min-jae's security team, the same man who'd broken her out of the FBI building. He was bleeding from his shoulder but still moving, still functional. Cover, he grunted, returning fire toward the shooter. We need cover. How did you... Mr. Kang said you'd need backup. We've been tracking you since Union Station. Now move. He hauled her to her feet, shielding her with his own body as they ran toward the street. More of Min-jae's people appeared from nowhere, coordinated, professional, laying down suppressing fire while evacuating Zuri from the kill zone. They shoved her into a van. Tires screamed. They were moving again, racing through Chicago's streets with police helicopters thumping overhead and the radio exploding with reports of a shootout in Millennium Park. Zuri's entire body shook. Reyes, the journalist, did she, She got out. She has the drive. It'll be published within hours. How do you know? Because we gave her a second copy before you even met her. Mr. Kang doesn't leave anything to chance. Despite everything, the terror, the adrenaline, the absolute insanity, Zuri laughed. Of course Min-jae had redundancies. Of course he'd planned for her to fail. Not because he didn't trust her, but because he loved her enough to make sure she survived even if the mission didn't. Her phone rang. Unknown number again. She answered. You should be dead. Park's voice was ice and fury. I had you. Perfect shot. Clear line. You should be bleeding out in that park right now. Sorry to disappoint. You just signed your daughter's death warrant. And Min-jae's. And your own. Zhang doesn't forgive failures, and you just made this very personal. Good. I'm done hiding. You want me? Come find me. She hung up, threw the phone out the window, watched it shatter on the asphalt. The van pulled into an abandoned warehouse on the south side. Min-jae's remaining crew, maybe 20 people, were setting up a defensive perimeter. Weapons, surveillance equipment, enough firepower to hold off a small army. This was the endgame. The final stand. The security team leader approached Zuri, expression grim. The story breaks in 3 hours. Once it's public, the FBI will have to release Mr. Kang or admit they're complicit in Zhang's conspiracy. But Zhang won't let that happen. They'll come for us before the story publishes. Try to kill everyone who knows the truth. How many people are we talking about? Zhang can field maybe 100 soldiers. We have 20. The math isn't good. Then we even the odds. How? Zuri thought about Darnell, about the man who'd terrorized her for years, who'd come to the estate drunk and desperate, who'd filed the police report that started this whole nightmare. The man who was probably still in Chicago, still being used by Park, still thinking he had leverage. Get me a phone, Zuri said. I know someone who owes me. Someone who might be stupid enough to help if the price is right. Who? My ex-husband. And trust me, he's exactly the kind of desperate that makes people do insane things. The team leader looked skeptical but handed her a burner phone. Zuri dialed Darnell's number from memory, prayed he hadn't changed it, waited through 4 rings. Hello? Darnell, it's Zuri. I need your help. And before you hang up, you should know that if you say yes, I can pay you $50,000 cash tonight. Silence. Then, I'm listening. Zuri smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a woman who'd learned to fight dirty in a world that only respected violence. Here's what you're going to do, she said. And if you follow my instructions exactly, you walk away rich and alive. If you screw this up, we both die. Understood? Understood. Good. Then let's go to war. Quotes. The story broke at 4 p.m. FBI corruption scandal. Federal agents allegedly compromised by Chinese criminal syndicate Jessica Reyes byline. Photos of Park with Zhang operatives. Financial records showing wire transfers. Everything. Front page of the Tribune's website, picked up by national news within minutes. Zuri watched it spread across social media from the warehouse, sitting on a crate surrounded by armed men preparing for battle. Phones started ringing. Government officials scrambling. The FBI field office going into lockdown. And somewhere in federal custody, Min-jae was watching the same story, knowing his gamble had paid off. 30 minutes later, the first call came through. Min-jae's attorney, voice crackling with barely contained excitement. They're releasing him. Emergency hearing in 2 hours. The judge is furious. The prosecutor's office is in chaos. Min-jae walks tonight. Zuri's chest opened. He's really coming home? If he survives the next 2 hours. Zhang knows they've lost the legal angle. They'll try something desperate before he's released. You need to be ready. We are. The warehouse doors exploded inward at 5:47 p.m. Not kicked open. Not breached tactically. Demolished by a truck that smashed through the entrance and disgorged 20 armed men in tactical gear, firing before Zuri's people could even react. The warehouse turned into a war zone. Muzzle flashes, screaming, blood spraying across concrete. Zuri dove behind a steel support beam while bullets chewed through metal and wood. One of Min-jae's men went down, then another, the defensive line collapsing faster than anyone had planned. This wasn't a raid, it was an execution. Zhang had sent everything, everyone, to erase the witnesses before the story gained more traction. Zuri scrambled for a weapon, found a pistol dropped by a dead man whose name she'd never learned. Her hand shook. She'd never fired a gun in her life. But survival didn't care about experience. A Zhang soldier rounded the corner. Zuri pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly broke her wrist. The bullet went wide. The soldier raised his weapon. Then Darnell appeared from behind a crate and smashed a crowbar into the soldier's skull. We're even now, he shouted over the gunfire. Whatever debt I owed you, we're done after this. Deal. They ran together through the chaos, looking for an exit that wasn't blocked by bodies or flames. The warehouse was collapsing. Zhang's people had brought explosives, were systematically destroying everything. This wasn't just about killing Zuri, it was about sending a message. They made it to a service door, burst into an alley, and found themselves face to face with Park. He stood alone, suit immaculate despite the carnage, holding a pistol with professional calm. Behind him, more Zhang soldiers poured from vehicles surrounding the alley. "Impressive," Park said. "You survived longer than I expected, but it's over now. Zhang wants you dead. Min-jae wants you safe. Unfortunately, you can't have both." "Min-jae's being released," Zuri gasped. "Your case fell apart. You lost. I didn't lose. I changed strategies. If Min-jae walks free, I kill everyone he loves. You, his son, every person who ever mattered to him. I'll burn his world to ash and make him live in the ruins. You're insane. I'm thorough." Park raised the gun, aimed at Zuri's chest. "Goodbye, Ms. Bennett. You deserved better than to die for a man like—" The shot came from behind. Not from Park. From a rooftop sniper. The bullet took Park in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. He hit the ground hard, gun skittering across the alley. More shots rang out, professional, precise, picking off Zhang's soldiers with surgical accuracy. And then Min-jae appeared at the end of the alley. Not in prison clothes, in a black suit, flanked by 20 men in body armor carrying assault rifles. He walked through the chaos like a king returning to his throne, expression carved from murder and determination. "Get away from her," Min-jae said quietly. The remaining Zhang soldiers dropped their weapons. Park, bleeding on the ground, stared up at Min-jae with hatred and disbelief. "How? You were in custody." "I was released 40 minutes ago. Emergency order from a federal judge who's very interested in why the FBI was working with foreign criminals. You're done, Park. Zhang's done. This is over." "It's never over. Zhang has connections everywhere, political, financial. You can't win against and Min-jae shot him. Not center mass, not lethal. Through the other shoulder, precise, painful. A message. "I just did," Min-jae said flatly. Then he moved past Park like he was trash on the sidewalk and pulled Zuri into his arms with enough force to crack ribs. "You're alive," he breathed into her hair. "You're actually alive." Zuri clung to him, shaking, crying, laughing, all of it hitting at once. "We won. We actually won. You won. You saved me. You saved all of us." Police sirens screamed in the distance, FBI vans screeching around corners, media helicopters circling overhead, the whole world descending on this alley in the south side where the story had finally reached its climax. But in that moment, Zuri didn't care about any of it. She just held on to the man she loved and let herself believe, for the first time in weeks, that they might actually survive this. That they might actually get to go home. The federal courthouse steps were crawling with cameras. Zuri stood beside Min-jae 3 days after the warehouse firefight, watching journalists shout questions while FBI officials tried to control a narrative that had already spiraled beyond their grasp. Special Agent Morrison was being led out in handcuffs, face gray with shame and fury. 2 other agents followed, the ones whose names had appeared in Park's financial records, their careers and freedom evaporating under the weight of evidence they couldn't deny. Park himself was in federal custody now, facing charges that would put him away for life. Conspiracy, racketeering, attempted murder. The list went on for pages. Zhang's syndicate had scattered like roaches when the lights came on. Key members arrested, operations dismantled, the empire they'd tried to build in Chicago collapsing before it ever truly formed. Min-jae's hand found Zuri's, squeezed gently. His knuckles were still bandaged from the fight. His face still carried bruises. But he was free. The charges dropped. The case dismissed with prejudice. The federal prosecutor's office scrambling to explain how they'd been manipulated by foreign criminals into targeting an innocent man. Innocent was a strong word for what Min-jae was, but legally, it was accurate enough. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Zuri nodded, not trusting her voice. She was exhausted down to her bones. 3 days of depositions, interviews, lawyers, and federal agents asking the same questions in different ways, trying to find inconsistencies in her story. 3 days of reliving the worst moments over and over, while strangers took notes and looked at her like she was either a victim or an accomplice, never quite able to decide which. 3 days since she'd seen Nia. Child Protective Services had taken her daughter the night of Zuri's FBI interrogation. Standard procedure, they'd said. Temporary custody while the investigation proceeded. But temporary had stretched into 72 hours of bureaucratic nightmares and court orders and social workers who looked at Zuri's file, single mother, involved with organized crime figure, present during multiple violent incidents, and saw a woman unfit to raise a child. The fact that Zuri had been trying to save that child's life didn't seem to register. "They're releasing her today," Min-jun said, reading her thoughts. "My attorney confirmed it an hour ago. All charges dropped. Full custody restored. We can pick her up this afternoon." "And Ji-hoon?" Min-jun's expression tightened. "Still with my sister in Korea. She's refusing to send him back until she's satisfied the situation here is stable. Says she doesn't trust me to keep him safe. Can you blame her?" "No, but it doesn't make it hurt less." They left the courthouse through a side entrance, avoiding the media circus, and climbed into a black SUV with tinted windows. The driver, one of Min-jun's remaining security team, pulled into traffic without a word. For several minutes, they just sat in silence, watching Chicago roll past the windows, both of them processing the weight of survival. "What happens now?" Zuri finally asked. "Now we rebuild. Figure out what's left of my life and decide if it's worth keeping." "Is it?" Min-jun turned to look at her, really look at her, with eyes that had seen too much violence and carried too much guilt. "I don't know. The legal businesses are intact, the hotels, the real estate holdings, the tech firms, all of it legitimate, all of it clean. But the underground operations, the parts of my empire that actually made me powerful, those are gone, dismantled by the FBI investigation. Even if I wanted to go back to that world, there's nothing left to go back to." "Good. Is it? I built my entire identity around being untouchable, being feared. Now I'm just," he gestured vaguely, "a rich man with a traumatized son and a criminal record that got expunged on a technicality. I don't know how to be anything else." "Then learn. You told me once that loving me made you vulnerable, made you weak. But you're wrong. It made you human. And that's not the same thing as weak." Min-jun's jaw worked. He looked away, stared out the window at the city he'd once ruled from the shadows. "My father used to say that the moment you care about something more than survival, you've already lost. That love is just a weapon people use to destroy you." "Your father died alone and hated. True. Is that what you want? To end up like him?" "No. But I don't know how to end up any other way. Violence is the only language I speak fluently. Fear is the only currency I understand. You think I can just walk away from that, build a normal life, be a father and a partner and a decent human being after everything I've done? I think you're already halfway there, and you're just too scared to admit it." Min-jun looked at her with something raw and desperate breaking through his armor. "What if I can't do this? What if I try to be the man you need me to be and I fail? What if I hurt you or Nia or Ji-hoon because I don't know how to be soft, how to be gentle, how to exist without the violence?" Zuri reached over, turned his face toward hers, held his gaze until he stopped trying to hide. "Then we fail together. And we pick ourselves up and try again. That's what family does. That's what love is. Not perfection, not safety, just showing up every day and choosing each other even when it's hard. You make it sound simple. It's not. It's the hardest thing in the world. But it's worth it." Min-jun kissed her then, slow and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her, trying to convince himself this was real and not just another temporary thing that would be ripped away. When they pulled apart, his eyes were wet. "I love you," he whispered. "I don't know if that's enough, but it's all I have." "It's enough," Zuri said. "It's always been enough." The Child Protective Services building was institutional gray and smelled like disinfectant and broken families. Zuri signed 17 different forms while a social worker with exhausted eyes explained the conditions of Nia's release. Counseling recommended. Follow-up visits scheduled. Any future incidents involving violence or criminal activity would result in immediate removal of the child from the home. The words were delivered with bureaucratic detachment, but the message was clear. You're on probation as a mother. one mistake away from losing her forever. Zuri nodded through all of it, kept her face neutral, swallowed the rage at being judged by strangers who had no idea what she'd survived to keep her daughter safe. Then they brought Nia out. The girl looked smaller than Zuri remembered, thinner, scared. Her eyes darted around the room looking for threats, landing on Zuri with something that could have been relief or could have been accusation. It was hard to tell. "Baby," Zuri breathed, kneeling down. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Nia stood frozen for a second, then crashed into her mother's arms with enough force to knock them both sideways. She sobbed into Zuri's shoulder, huge gulping cries that sounded like they'd been held back for days. Zuri held her daughter and cried too, months of terror and exhaustion finally breaking through the wall she'd built to survive. "You left me," Nia choked out. "You promised you wouldn't leave and you left." "I know. I'm sorry. I had to protect you. I had to make sure you were safe. I thought you weren't coming back. I thought they were going to keep me forever." "Never. I will always come back for you, always, no matter what." Min-jae stood in the doorway watching them, expression carefully blank but eyes betraying the weight of his own guilt. Nia noticed him, pulled back from Zuri, wiped her face with her sleeve. "Is he coming home with us?" she asked quietly. Zuri glanced at Min-jae, then back at her daughter. "Do you want him to?" Nia's face scrunched up, trying to process complicated feelings she didn't have words for. "Where's Ji-hoon?" "Korea, with his aunt. He's safe." "Is he coming back?" "We don't know yet. He should come back. He needs us." Nia looked at Min-jae directly for the first time. "You should bring him back. Family is supposed to stay together." Something cracked in Min-jae's expression. He crossed the room, knelt beside Nia, met her eyes at her level. "You're right. Families should stay together. I'm going to try to bring him home, but it might take time. His aunt is scared. She doesn't think I'm safe to be around." "Are you?" The question, so direct, so honest, made Min-jae flinch. "I'm trying to be. That's the best answer I can give you right now." Nia studied him with the brutal honesty of childhood, the kind that saw through lies and pretense and found the truth underneath. Whatever she saw made her nod slowly. "Okay, but if you hurt my mom again, I'll be really mad at you." "That's fair. And you have to teach me Korean." "Ji-hoon was teaching me, but I forgot some of it." "I can do that." "And we have to make pizza on Fridays. That's our thing now." Min-jae's eyes went glassy. "Yeah, that's our thing." Nia seemed satisfied with this negotiation. She took her mother's hand, then reached out and took Min-jae's too, linking the three of them together. "Can we go home now?" "Yeah, baby," Zuri said, voice breaking. "Let's go home." Taeg. Home turned out to be a different mansion, not the estate where the attack had happened. Min-jae had sold that property immediately, unwilling to make Zuri and Nia live somewhere that carried so much trauma. This new place was smaller, warmer, closer to the city. It had normal rooms with normal furniture and a kitchen that looked like actual humans cooked in it instead of professional caterers. There were no armed guards patrolling the grounds, no surveillance room monitoring every entrance, no safe room in the basement stocked for a siege. It was just a house, a really, really expensive house. But still, Zuri spent the first week just trying to breathe without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Every noise made her jump. Every unknown car on the street made her pulse spike. She'd wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, convinced Zhang's people had found them, convinced the FBI had changed their minds, convinced this fragile peace was just a temporary illusion before the violence returned. Min-jae wasn't much better. He moved through the house like a ghost, working from his home office, taking calls in Korean that left him exhausted and hollow. The calls were always the same: business associates cutting ties, partners backing out of deals, former allies distancing themselves from the man who'd been publicly exposed as a crime lord, even if the charges hadn't stuck. His empire was crumbling, not from legal action, but from reputation damage he couldn't control. The man who'd once commanded absolute power was learning what it felt like to be abandoned by the world he'd built. 2 weeks after they'd moved in, Zuri found him in his office at midnight, staring at financial reports with dead eyes. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad. I'm hemorrhaging money. The legitimate businesses are taking hits because no one wants to be associated with me. Partners are invoking morality clauses, pulling investments, terminating contracts. In 6 months, I'll have lost 70% of my net worth. Will we be okay? Financially? Yes. I have enough reserves to keep us comfortable for the rest of our lives. But everything I built, everything I worked for, it's disappearing, and I don't know how to stop it. He rubbed his face, looking older than she'd ever seen him. My attorney says Zhang's people are still active. Different leadership, but same organization. They're laying low for now, rebuilding. Eventually they'll come back, and when they do, I won't have the resources to fight them. Then we leave. Start over somewhere else, Korea or Europe or... Running doesn't work. I tried that philosophy for years. All it does is delay the inevitable. He looked at her with eyes full of resignation. I think I need to make a deal. Zuri's stomach dropped. What kind of deal? The kind where I officially exit the criminal world. Publicly, permanently. I work with federal prosecutors to identify remaining Zhang operations in exchange for complete immunity and protection. I testify against everyone still active. Burn every bridge. Make sure there's no path back to that life, even if I wanted one. They'll see that as betrayal. You'll have a target on your back forever. I already have a target on my back. At least this way it comes with federal protection and a chance to actually build something legitimate. He stood, moved to the window, stared out at the dark gardens. I'm tired, Zuri. Tired of fighting. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of being the monster everyone expects me to be. I want... His voice cracked. I want to take my son to school without worrying someone's going to kidnap him. I want to marry you without wondering if our wedding will turn into a bloodbath. I want to be normal, even if normal means being poor and powerless and forgotten. Warm. Zuri moved behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist, pressed her face against his back. You'll never be forgotten. Not by the people who matter. Promise? Promise. They stood like that for a long time, two people who'd survived hell holding on to each other in the dark, trying to believe that peace was possible even for the damaged and the violent and the ones who'd done terrible things. Min-jae made the deal 3 weeks later. The press conference was surreal. Min-jae standing beside federal prosecutors, cameras flashing, announcing his cooperation with ongoing investigations into organized crime. He named names, gave locations, provided evidence that would dismantle what remained of Chicago's Korean underground. The man who'd spent his life building power in the shadows was burning it all down in front of the world. The backlash was immediate. Death threats flooded his email, anonymous messages promising revenge, former associates calling him a traitor, a coward, a dead man walking. Min-jae took it all with the same controlled calm he'd always carried, but Zuri could see the weight accumulating in his eyes, the way his shoulders sagged a little more each day. He was grieving, not for the criminal empire, he'd made peace with losing that, but for the identity he'd built around it, for the version of himself that had been powerful and feared and untouchable. That man was dying, and Min-jae was watching it happen in real time, unable to stop it, unsure what would be left when the transformation was complete. 1 month after the press conference, the phone call came from Korea, Min-jae's sister. Her voice was cold, clipped, but underneath the anger, Zuri could hear something that might have been relief. I saw the news, she said in Korean. Min-jae had the call on speaker, translating for Zuri in real time. You destroyed everything Father built. Yes. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. Yes. You made our family name synonymous with weakness and failure. I know. A long pause, then, Ji-hoon wants to come home. Min-jae's hand tightened on the phone. What? He's been asking about you every day. About Zuri. About Nia. He says he doesn't care that you're a traitor. He just wants his family back. Her voice softened slightly. I think maybe you're finally becoming the father he deserves. I don't forgive you for the past, but I'm willing to give you a chance at the future. When can I get him? I'll put him on a flight tomorrow. But Min-jae, if you fail him again, if you let violence back into his life, I will take him and you will never see him again. This is your last chance. Don't waste it. I won't. I promise. The line went dead. Min-jae stood frozen in the middle of the living room, phone still in his hand, expression cycling through shock and hope and terror. Then he looked at Zuri with eyes that were actually crying, not just wet, but full tears streaming down his face. "He's coming home," he whispered. "My son is coming home." Zuri pulled him into her arms, let him break down completely, let him release years of guilt and pain and fear that he'd lost his child forever. They stood there crying together while Nia watched from the doorway, too young to fully understand but old enough to know this was important. "Does this mean Ji-hoon's coming back?" she asked. "Yeah, baby," Zuri said. "He's coming home tomorrow." Nia's face split into a huge smile. "Good. I missed him." "Me too," Min-jae said, wiping his face, trying to pull himself together. "Me too." Thanks. Ji-hoon arrived at O'Hare International Airport on a cold November afternoon, 6 months almost to the day after Zuri had first walked into Min-jae's life. The boy came through the international terminal looking exhausted and scared and painfully small. His eyes scanned the crowd, landed on Min-jae, and something in his expression just crumbled. He ran, crashing into his father hard enough to knock them both sideways, and clung to him like he was afraid he'd disappear if he let go. Min-jae held his son and sobbed openly in the middle of the airport, not caring who saw, not caring about the cameras or the stares or the strangers watching this very public moment of vulnerability. For the first time in his life, Kang Min-jae wasn't trying to be strong, wasn't trying to be feared. He was just a father holding his child, grateful beyond words that he'd been given another chance. "I'm sorry," he kept saying in Korean over and over. "I'm so sorry for everything, for all of it." Ji-hoon pulled back, looked up at his father with red-rimmed eyes. "Are we safe now? Really safe?" "Yes, we're safe." "And Zuri and Nia are staying? They're not leaving?" "They're not leaving. We're a family now, all of us." Ji-hoon seemed to test this statement, looking for the lie, the caveat, the moment his father would revert back to the cold, distant man who'd raised him. When he didn't find it, he nodded slowly and threw his arms around Min-jae again. Nia, who'd been watching with barely contained excitement, finally couldn't hold back anymore. She ran forward and hugged Ji-hoon from the side, creating a tangle of children and emotions in the middle of the airport terminal. "I taught myself some more Korean while you were gone," she announced proudly. "Do you want to hear?" Ji-hoon laughed, actually laughed, the sound rusty but real. "Yeah, let's hear it." Nia rattled off something in terrible mangled Korean that made Ji-hoon laugh harder. Min-jae translated for Zuri. "She just told him his face looks like a surprised turtle." "That's not what I meant to say." "What did you mean to say?" "I missed you." "That's not even close, Nia." They walked out of the airport together, Zuri and Min-jae, and 2 kids who'd somehow become siblings in the chaos. And for the first time in months, the world felt like it might actually hold together. Chamits. Life didn't become perfect. Ji-hoon had nightmares about the attack on the estate. Nia had separation anxiety that made her clingy and scared. Min-jae struggled with depression as his old identity continued to crumble, leaving him untethered and searching for purpose. Zuri fought her own demons, PTSD from the violence, anxiety about money despite Min-jae's assurances, the constant fear that this fragile peace would shatter. But they fought through it together. Min-jae started therapy. Real therapy, with a trauma specialist who'd worked with former gang members and understood the psychology of men who'd built their entire existence around violence. It was brutal, painful. He came home from sessions looking hollowed out, forced to confront truths about himself he'd spent decades avoiding. But slowly, something shifted. The man who'd once solved every problem with fear and control started learning how to actually feel things, how to process emotion instead of burying it, how to be present with his pain instead of weaponizing it. Zuri went back to school. She'd always wanted to be a chef, and Min-jae, desperate to give her something that was entirely hers, paid for culinary school without hesitation. She threw herself into learning, into creating, into building a dream that had nothing to do with surviving and everything to do with living. It was terrifying and exhilarating and exactly what she needed. The kids adjusted, slowly. Ji-hoon rejoined his school, made friends, started acting like a regular 8-year-old instead of a miniature adult carrying the weight of his father's empire. Nia thrived with stability, her grades improving, her nightmares fading, her laughter coming easier. 6 months after Ji-hoon came home, Min-jae sold the last of his underground holdings. Everything. Every contact, every asset, every trace of the criminal empire he'd spent 20 years building. He walked away with less money than he'd started with, but more freedom than he'd ever known. The threats didn't stop immediately. Zhang's people were still out there, still angry, still nursing grudges. But federal protection was real, and eventually the organization moved on to easier targets. Min-jae became old news. Yesterday's threat. A cautionary tale instead of an active enemy. He learned to live with that. 1 year after Zuri had first spilled cleaning chemicals on the marble floor of Kang Tower, Min-jae rented out Kim's 24-hour diner. The same dine restaurant where he'd first seen her. The same cracked counters and buzzing neon sign. He'd had the place deep cleaned, the kitchen brought up to code, the broken equipment replaced. But otherwise, it looked exactly the same. Zuri walked in at 7 p.m. expecting dinner. Instead, she found the entire diner transformed. White lights strung across the ceiling, flowers on every table. Their closest friends, the ones who'd stuck around after everything fell apart, sitting in booths with champagne and ridiculous smiles. And at the center of it all, Min-jae, in a simple black suit, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen him look before. "What is this?" Zuri asked, voice shaking. "The place where everything started," Min-jae said. "Where I saw you for the first time and thought, this woman is going to ruin me or save me, and I couldn't tell which. Turned out it was both." He moved to her, took her hands, held her gaze with eyes that had learned how to be soft. "I'm not the man I was when we met. That person is gone. Dead. Buried under federal testimony and therapy sessions and the slow, painful work of becoming someone better. I don't have an empire anymore. I don't have power or fear or control. All I have is this." He gestured at the diner, at the people watching, at the life they'd built from ruins. "A family, a purpose, a reason to wake up that isn't about survival. You gave me that. You and Nia and Ji-hoon. You made me believe that even monsters can still be saved." He knelt down, pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious, and looked up at her with vulnerability that made him more beautiful than any amount of power ever could. "I know I don't deserve you. I know I've put you through hell. I know there are 1,000 reasons you should say no. But I'm asking anyway. Marry me. Build a life with me. Let me spend the rest of my existence proving that love is stronger than fear, that family is chosen, that even broken people can make something whole." Zuri couldn't breathe. Tears streamed down her face. Everyone in the diner was watching, waiting, and she didn't care. She just looked at this man who'd been a ghost, a king, a killer, a father, and finally, just human. "Yes," she said. "Yes, you idiot. Of course, yes." Min-jae's face split into the most genuine smile she'd ever seen. He stood, slid the ring onto her finger, kissed her in the middle of the diner while their friends cheered and Ji-hoon made exaggerated gagging noises, and Nia yelled, "Does this mean we're really a family now?" "Yeah, baby," Zuri said, pulling her daughter into the hug. "We're really a family now." The wedding happened 3 months later. Small ceremony. Private garden overlooking the Chicago skyline. Just family and the handful of friends who'd survived the chaos with them. No media, no spectacle, no armed guards or security protocols or contingency plans for violence. Just two broken people promising to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. Ji-hoon stood beside his father as best man, looking proud and terrified in his first real suit. Nia served as flower girl, taking her job so seriously she'd practiced her walk for 3 days straight. Maria cried through the entire ceremony. Darnell didn't show up. He'd taken his $50,000 and disappeared to Atlanta, keeping his promise to stay away. Min-jae's sister watched via video call from Korea, expression carefully neutral but eyes soft. When Min-jae said his vows, his voice cracked halfway through. "I can't promise I'll always know how to do this, how to be a husband, a father, a good man. But I promise I'll keep trying. I promise I'll choose you every day. And I promise that the violence ends here, with us. No more running, no more hiding. Just this, whatever this is." Zuri's vows were simpler. I love you even when you're difficult, even when you're scared, even when you forget how to be soft. I love you, and that's enough. It's always been enough. They kissed while the sun set over Chicago, two people who'd survived hell standing in a garden built on hope instead of fear. 2 years later, they opened Midnight Soul. The restaurant was everything Zuri had dreamed. Intimate space in downtown Chicago, warm lighting, open kitchen where guests could watch her cook. The menu was exactly what Min-jun had once predicted. Fusion of Korean comfort food and Southern Seoul cuisine. Kimchi collard greens, gochujang fried chicken, sweet potato japchae, mac and cheese with a Korean chili oil drizzle, food that tasted like two worlds becoming one. The restaurant wasn't famous because of Min-jun's money. It was famous because people could feel the love inside it, could taste the history in every dish, could see the family dynamic between Zuri in the kitchen, Min-jun managing the front of house, Ji-hoon helping with prep work, and Nia greeting guests with a smile that could melt ice. They made it work. Not perfectly, not easily, but work. Min-jun still had hard days, days where the past pressed down on him and he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd failed everyone. Days where he looked at his children and saw all the ways he'd damaged them, all the trauma he'd caused, all the reasons he didn't deserve this second chance. But Zuri was always there to remind him that deserving had nothing to do with it. That life wasn't about earning redemption through suffering. It was about choosing to be better every single day, even when the weight of the past tried to drag you back. On those hard days, they'd close the restaurant early and go home, make pizza together as a family. Ji-hoon teaching Nia Korean curse words when he thought the adults weren't listening, Min-jun attempting to knead dough and failing spectacularly, Zuri laughing at all of them covered in flour and sauce, and the beautiful mess of being alive. Those nights were Zuri's favorite, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. 3 years after everything fell apart and somehow rebuilt itself, Zuri stood in the kitchen of Midnight Soul on a Friday night, watching her family through the service window. Min-jun was at the host stand, greeting customers with a warmth that would have shocked anyone who'd known him in his previous life. Ji-hoon was in the back washing dishes, headphones on, completely in his own world. Nia was practicing her Korean with regular customers, butchering the pronunciation but trying so hard Min-jun didn't have the heart to correct her. And Zuri was exactly where she'd always dreamed of being. Not scrubbing counters in a dying diner, not drowning under the weight of poverty and exhaustion, but creating, building, making something that mattered. Maria appeared beside her, older now, still working for the family, but in a capacity that felt more like grandmother than employee. "You did good, mija," she said quietly. "We all did." "No. This was you. You saved him. Saved all of them. Don't forget that." Zuri thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago. Broken. Desperate. Surviving instead of living. She thought about all the choices that had led her here. Some good, some terrible, all of them necessary. "I didn't save him," she said finally. "We saved each other. That's how it works." Maria smiled and returned to the dining room. Min-jun caught Zuri's eye through the window, gave her that small smile he reserved only for her, the one that said thank you for not giving up on me. She smiled back, the kind of smile that said thank you for being worth the fight. Then she turned back to her work, to the food, to the life they'd built from violence and fear, and the stubborn belief that love could be stronger than all of it. And for the first time in her entire life, Zuri Bennett, now Zuri Kang, felt safe. Not because the danger was gone. It would never be completely gone. Not because the past had been erased. It would always carry scars. But because she'd learned the most important truth there was. Safety wasn't about the absence of danger. It was about having people who'd fight beside you when danger came. It was about building something strong enough to survive the storms. It was about choosing each other every single day, even when the world gave you 1,000 reasons not to. That was love. That was family. That was enough. Every Friday night, no matter how busy the restaurant got, they still closed early and went home to make pizza together. Still laughed at Min-jun's terrible dough kneading skills. Still let the kids stay up too late arguing over toppings. Still sat around the table eating food made with imperfect hands and perfect love. And in those moments, flour in their hair, sauce on their shirts, children laughing loud enough to shake the walls, Zuri would look at her strange, broken, beautiful family and think, we made it. Against every odd, against every enemy, against our own worst selves, we made it home.